We keep chugging along in 2024 with Jack Hermansson and Joe Pyfer this weekend as the main event, and the number 10th ranked Jack Hermansson and the unranked Joe Pyfer go at it for 5 rounds. Now, I'm going to be going through the entire card and giving my predictions for each of these, and then I will end off with who I think is going to win the main event. So let's start off with the first prelim. First matchup, we have Daniel Marcos and Arichi Ling. Sorry, I don't really know the name. I'm going to go Daniel Marcos. What I saw from him was very good. He is a young prospect, 15-0. Daniel Marcos is a pretty decent prospect, 15-0 out of Peru. And he's already had a couple fights under the organization, and I think I just trust him more, right? If you have a win over Davy Grant, split decision, I get it, split decision, but, if you have a win over Davy Grant like that, you're pretty decent, right? And that fight was close, right? A lot of people did score Davy Grant. But I just think this time around with a guy who, isn't as talented as Davy Grant, I think he'll get the job done again. And that's why I'm going to go Daniel Marcos with a second round KO. Next up, we have Zach Paga and Bogdan Guskov. And I really like Guskov, right? He's got a lot of finishes, a lot of knockouts, and Paga's been, knocked out before, right? And he's making the transition down to light heavyweight. We remember him from the Ultimate Fighter being at heavyweight. Now he's transitioning to light heavyweight. For some reason, when anyone does that transition, from heavyweight down to light heavyweight, it's either good or bad. In this case, I don't know if it's the greatest thing in the world, just because he's already not that big to be a light heavyweight, right? He's a little smaller, right? He was a smaller heavyweight. Now he's going down to light heavyweight, and he's gonna maybe be average, average size. And Bogdan's a knockout artist, and he's proven to finish people, right? Zach Pauga's been finished, right? I keep saying that, right? I get it. He's been finished, but I just like the upside more of Bogdan. And I think you should too, because I think he's going to get a knockout in the first round. And I'm pretty confident in that. I just trust his ability to finish this fight. So I'm going to go with Bogdan Guskov. Next up, we have Max Griffin and Jeremiah Wells. I'm going to go Jeremiah Wells. And I was debating on this one because I really didn't know. And I remember how, good he was before his last fight, which he got submitted. But I just like his ability more, right? He's more explosive on the feet, can knock you out, and he's got good wrestling. And Griffin's a vet, right? He's tough. He's been around. He's fought some tough guys. But I just don't think the upside for Griffin winning this fight is very high when you have a guy who is as skilled as Jeremiah Wells. Like, yeah, he's old. Maybe he's not as highly rated as some other contenders. But he's skillful. He really is skillful. And I think he'll get this one done by decision. I'm going to go decision. I was thinking submission, but I'm going to go decision here. I trust him more than Max Griffin right now, even though he's a wild man, right? I just think he has more ways to win the fight. Next up, we have Trevin Giles versus Carlos Prates, or at least I think that's how it's pronounced. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to go Carlos. He was on the Contender Series, and he looks really, really good. And Trevin Giles is not a very good fighter in the UFC. And I think when you show that high skill and the well-versed, how well-versed you can be, I'm going to go him, And Carlos, he was on the Dana White Contender Series, like I just said. And he won pretty, well and decisive. So I think I'm going to go Carlos. I just like his chances in this fight. They're giving him a guy who's not very good. And they're kind of giving him a layup. So I expect him to win this. I'm going to go round 1 KO. Next up, we have Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosyan. I'm going to go Armen Petrosyan. Armen's not, Armen Sarukian, right? But I like Armen Petrosyan. And I don't know why I said Arman Sarukian. I don't know why. They're same country, but they're not even the same style fighters. Armen Petrosyan is a good striker. Rodolfo Fierro, what I've seen, it's like, I don't really know. And Armen Petrosyan, his last time out, really, really showed out. Against Chris Duncan, he took it to a decision, he won, and then he beat Dobson, right? And he's more, well-rounded. He beat RoboCop, who we'll get to. He's on this card too. But Armin Petrosian is a good fighter. I like him. I just think he's going to get this one done. Like, this is a coin toss matchup, right? It's a coin toss matchup on the betting odds, and I think it's also a coin toss. But I just trust Armin Petrosian more as a mixed martial artist, so I'm going to go him by decision. Next up, Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers. I'm going to go Michael Johnson. I know more about him. We know what he is. He's hot or cold. Got knocked out last time. He's been knocked out many times before, but Darius Flowers is not very good. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to go Michael Johnson, round 1 KO. Next up, we got Robert Brychek versus Ihor Peteria. I'm going to go Robert in this. Ihor Peteria, he's known for beating Shogun, but he's been knocked out 3 times in the UFC, and he's not very good. I just think, stylistically, he still doesn't favor this, and even though he might be favored on paper, I just don't trust him. I don't trust him. I don't think he's good at all. I really don't think he's good at all. So I'm gonna go Robert in this matchup by round 1 KO. Next up, it's Brad Tavares versus Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez, and I'm gonna go RoboCop. Don't get me wrong, Brad Tavares is really tough. He's tough as nails, but I just think Gregory Rodriguez is just a better mixed martial artist. We've seen Brad Tavares be outclassed many, many times before. Just because you beat Chris Weidman doesn't mean anything, really. But the one thing I will say is he will probably take this to a decision, and I think it will be close. It will be close, but I just think RoboCop will land more. It'll be like 29-28 on 2 judge scorecards and a 30-27 on the other. Like, that's the type of fight it is. It's like close, but not really close. And I just think he has more ways to win it as well. I mean, his striking's better, his ground game's better. The really only thing that Tavares has is toughness and maybe the kicking game. Other than that, I just think RoboCop is a much, much better fighter. And that's why I'm going to go with him in this matchup. Next up, we have Dan Ige and Andre Fili. And I'm going to go Dan Ige. Andre Fili is a knockout artist, and he's actually a pretty good striker. He's got long reach for the 145-pound class. But Dan Ige is just a different striker. He's got more pop than a lot of guys Fili has fought before, and he struggled with guys like that, right? That's maybe his main reason why he can't beat Dan Ige. But I just like Dan Ige more. He's a better striker, better mixed martial artist. Dan Ige might be a gatekeeper too. I could have put him in the gatekeeper video because he's always going to be sticking around that 10 to 15 area. And this is another guy that's, trying to get into the rankings after 2 good performances in a row. But Dan Ige is the ultimate gatekeeper of really the top 14 or the 14 through 15 spot because, remember Nate Landwehr, he was testing his ranking, beat him. This is another instance of this, right? Another kind of biggish name in the featherweight division, but not really a veteran of the game. And I just think he's gonna beat him on skill, and that's really ultimately what it comes down to. So I'm gonna go Dan Ige by decision. Next up, the main event: Jack Hermansson and Joe Pyfer. And I like Joe Pyfer in this fight. I really do. If you didn't know, he broke the record at the UFC PI for the hardest punch. So technically, he's the hardest puncher in the sport of MMA right now, which is kind of crazy. And that's why I'm going to go with him, because he has a lot of power, right? Jack Hermansson, I call him the pound-for-pound peskiest fighter. What that means is he's going to be at range, kicking you, jabbing you up, not really going to engage at all, but going to be on the back foot, moving. He's a mover. And Pyfer can move pretty well at the 185-pound division. And back to why he's so pesky. Sorry. The way he attacks, it's from the outside. Like I said, I just don't think he's got enough power to stay with Pyfer, because Pyfer can land really hard in the pocket, and he's good at closing distance to get that knockout power. And we've seen grappling recently. That's what Jack Hermansson really struggles with, is the grappling. There's been many, many times that Jack Hermansson's been in bad spots, TKO'd by Roma Delidze, you know, getting out wrestled by Marvin Vittori, right? We've seen this before. And if Pyfer can take it there, I think he's got a good chance. And obviously, I think he can strike with him. The only thing I'm worried about is Pyfer's gas tank, because I don't know how good it is, right? This might be a 1 or 2 round fight, but what if Hermansson survives, right? What if he can get out of danger? Then it's a different question because we don't know the gas tank. And I would hope to think he is training and his gas tank is good to go 5 rounds, but we just haven't seen it, right? But I think I'm going to bank on Pyfer having good cardio and can stay in there and fight 5 rounds, right? I think he can do it. And I just think he's got more ways to win on the feet too. He's more well versed, right? Hermansson might have a heavy kicking game and he throws some punches, but he's not really adapting. He's just outside leg kick, maybe a body kick, maybe, a jab. It's the same stuff with him, so he scores points. He's a point fighter. Look what he did to Chris Curtis. I mean, he frustrated Chris Curtis beyond belief because he jabbed from the outside, right? He's just peppering from the outside, hitting the leg outside, a little bit of an Adesanya type fighter. And I think Pyfer has got what it takes to close the distance and ultimately score a knockout. And I'm going to go a knockout in the 3rd round. Maybe Hermansson can survive, but, being out that long, it's not good at his age either, right? He's 35. He's getting up there in age, and Pyfer is the surging young contender. I mean, why do you think they made this a main event? And why do you think this fight's happening? Well, they want Pyfer in the rankings. They want him to keep continuing. And Hermansson, not so much, because, he's kind of lost of whatever he's got. That's why the last 2 times he's been offered contenders, Brendan Allen, now Joe Pyfer. And I really, really like Pyfer's chances in this fight. He's the better fighter. He's a younger fighter, fresher fighter, non-injured fighter, or at least we assume, right? And Pyfer's just a great fighter. I'm just going to leave it at that. He's got the hardest punch in MMA, and that's just all it comes down to. So I'm going to go Joe Pyfer by round 3 knockout. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. And comment down some video suggestions down below. I will definitely get to them. And yeah, till next time.